order to fix that issue, basically we have to create an SSH key. So essentially, before August 13th, actually, you could, every time you do git push, you could just enter your username and password, and then it would go through. But that was sort of annoying because you'd have to do it every single time. So basically what you could do is set up an SSH key, which is basically a key stored on your computer, and you also add it into your GitHub settings. And then it basically, it's able to know that the key belongs to you and you don't have to use your email password each time. But as of August 13th last year, looks like they switched it over to you always need an access token. So we're going to create an access token now. So basically, this is what you have to run. You do SSH-keygen -o. So this is going to create an SSH key for you. So run that. It's going to ask you which file to save the key in. So by default, it's going to be in here. It's going to be in this ID_RSA file. That's fine. We'll just use a default one. So just press enter. So you probably won't get this message, but I already created one, so it just says it already exists. I'm just going to say yes, I want to overwrite it, but most of you probably won't get this message. And then you can enter a passphrase. So basically what will happen is every time you run git push or git pull, it's going to ask, basically tries to verify your identity based off of your SSH key. And in order to, as an extra layer of security, it asks you for a password that goes along with your SSH key. So it's kind of, it's not really necessary for our purposes. It's fine if you're just using it for personal use. So I'm just not going to enter one just because it's quicker and you don't have to enter it each time. So I'm just not going to enter anything. And then once you're done with that, it should tell you that your identification has been saved in this location. So basically in your home folder, inside of your username account or your directory that corresponds to your username, and then inside of this .ssh folder, inside of a ID_RSA file. And we'll take a look at that in a moment. But so far, any other issues? Everybody's good. You were able to make a key successfully. Okay, looks like no issues. So now we're actually going to go ahead and find our key. So you can just do cd, which is this is a tilde character. So you'll find this at like the top left of your keyboard. It just takes you to your home directory. And then once you do that, if you do ls or ls-a, you should have a .ssh folder. So it's kind of hard to see because my colors are a bit dark, but there should be a .ssh folder. So if you do cd.ssh, it should take you, and then you do ls-a. So you can see the ID_RSA file that we were talking about earlier. So this file contains your SSH key. So what we're going to do is cat ID_RSA. That'll just print out your key in the terminal. And this is basically your key. Or actually, sorry, there's two files. So there's ID_RSA and there's ID_RSA.pub. We're actually interested in the .pub file. So let me run that again. So let me clear. And then I'm going to do cat. So again, if you do ls-a, you should see the .pub file and then ID_RSA file. We want the .pub file, so that contains our SSH key. So we're going to do cat ID_RSA.pub. And then that prints out my key. So let me make this big full screen so you can see that. So it should look something like this. Your key should start with SSH-RSA, and it should end with your username on Ubuntu. So it looks something like this. And then what you can do is just go ahead and copy it. So just highlight it, Control-C. And then what we're going to do is add this to our GitHub settings. So everybody good so far? You're able to find your file, the ID_RSA.pub file, and get your key. Any issues? Click no issues. If there's no issues, I'll continue. But feel free to message the chat if you had any issues. So now you can just go to your GitHub settings page, or you can just click this link. I put it in the chat. It's just easier to get there. So you go to this link. Now what you're going to do is just click on new SSH key. So I already have a number of keys, but what I'll do is just add another one. And then over here, basically you paste the key from that was printed in your terminal. So again, it should start with SSH-RSA, and then it should end with basically your username. And then you can give it whatever name. I'll just name it SSH key free because this is my third key. So I'll just do add SSH key. And now what will happen is basically you can push to any repository from your computer that's linked to your account without having to enter your email and password each time. So let's go back to our test repository. So remember earlier when I ran this command, the git push -u origin main, it gave me that error that I don't have an access token. So now it's no longer going to give me that issue. So let's go back to our repository. So I'm going to go to, let's see, I think it was in, where am I? Oh. Or I think I was in CD. Oh. Sorry, I forgot where I was. So basically, you should have so far a README file. Yeah, it was in test. I was just in the wrong directory. So you should have this README file. And before, when we ran git push -u origin main, basically we got an error saying that we don't have an access token. So again, we're going to run this now after creating our SSH key, and it'll go through perfectly. So you can see it says that it gives you this little message. And it says that branch main set up to track remote branch main from origin. So now if you go to your repository, if I refresh the page, you can see I now have a README file. And the other interesting thing you'll notice is it says 8 minutes ago, but I actually just pushed like a few seconds ago. So the way it's timestamped is actually the time you commit on your local machine. So if I commit something right now, but I push it, let's say the next day, it'll show up on GitHub as being 24 hours ago. So it uses a timestamp that was on your local machine. So that's a little interesting fact. So that should have worked so far for